I've never come across anyone so well recognized in the social sector and yet so humble and gregarious in real life that I've been struggling to put down a fitting introduction for her. The list of her achievements is rather long. Formally, she is the founder director of Protsahan India Foundation. She is a member, expert committee on anti-child trafficking, Delhi Commissioner Women, and member of CSO Coalition to End Child Marriage in India. She's a FICCI and CII awardee, and she is also a speaker of repute at various global and Indian universities. I can really go on, but truly, she is no less than a guardian angel, a knight in shining armor for all those children of abuse that she has managed to heal through art and technology. Please welcome Sonal Kapoor.
So thank you very much, Sonal, for taking the time to do this at this ungodly hour.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's begin the conversation. So I was just reading about that moment of compassion that you had and something that changed your perspective significantly in the years to come. So what happened? What was different about that moment this time that you actually jumped at starting Protsahan after that?
I think now that your question is actually making me go back in time, which is almost about 10 and a half, 11 odd years back. And I think, and this is, I would also relate that moment in time that you talk of, Deeksha, with who I have understood myself to be, or, who I understand myself as evolving to be. And I think that was the most authentic that I have been in my life with myself. Or one of those moments, out of those several hundreds or thousands where I have been just me. A lot of people ask me, what happened in that moment or on that day that led you to actually quit your corporate race and start this bit. But I think that was just some little authentic part of myself that just came to the fore. And I didn't rubbish it. I didn't neglect it, or I didn't say, "Hey, that's like, you open a non-profit job, when you're 60 years old." I think at 60 you probably would end up with arthritis. I don't know. At 60, I don't know if I would have. I don't know anything. What will happen when I am 60? So if there's a pressing thought that I need to do something about a problem, that just had to happen at that moment when I felt it. And here we are, 10 years later, 11 years later.
So if you look back today at Protsahan and your journey with Protsahan, what comes to your mind?
I think that little day when, it was one 8-year-old who had to be rescued from a point of going to a brothel or to a point of prostitution. Whereas any 8-year-old should be in a school or playing or sleeping or doing nothing or, her parents probably spoiling her crazy. That kid was being sent to sell herself in the market, like literally on the market. And I think from that, even on that day and even today, I don't know if Protsahan is anything but just encouragement. And that is also the literal translation of the word encouragement, the Hindi translation as Protsahan. Because I never had, at least on the first day, now of course, there are business plans and there are Excel sheets and there are presentations of, the program interventions and all of those things now after a decade, or I think after 4-5 years when we started having these things. But on the first day, it just was that simple thought that इस लड़की को बाजार में नहीं बिकना है, or this kid should not be sold at a point. She should just be making art or studying or whatever it is. And Protsahan that day was also encouragement. Today it is also encouragement. Of course, now it's also that encouragement should also empower the girls with education, healthcare and justice as we now define it. But it's just that little moment where a girl wishes to be who she wishes to be. If she wants to be a dancer, then so be it. If she wishes to be a painter or an academician or a lawyer, she just wishes to be who she wishes to be. We just push her for that. That's it. We just encourage her for that. That is all Protsahan is.
So when you decided that you want to rescue this 8-year-old today, what was the first thing that you actually did?
So I laugh with my friends from MBA saying that, if nothing else, then MBA at least teaches you to do a little basic feasibility study, to basic understand. Not that you need an MBA for any of this. Basic common sense would also do. But I think I kind of did a little feasibility study in the area when we found out about this girl. And I was on a film shoot that I was shooting. I was in the hardcore communications advertising space that point in time. First job. First job, as long as you're happy, you really don't care about anything else really. I loved my team. I loved my people in the workplace. And when this moment came upon, I really didn't have any non-profit experience, no NGO experience, barely had ever volunteered or maybe not at any organization. And my understanding of this was that how big is the problem? Does this problem begin and end at this kid, at this girl? Or in this particular region or this particular community that we are looking at, does this problem, or are there more kids, irrespective, girls, boys, but are there more kids who are out of schools, or whose childhood is like literally being ridiculed? And it was just a basic study of I don't know, like 65 households that I did on that single day, and it came out that 19 kids, 19. All girls, all of them girls, were not being sent to school. Not all of them were being sexually abused, but not all those 19 kids were not being sent to school. Some of them had to just take care of their younger siblings. Some of them, two of them were working at a dhaba. One of them was a daughter of a manual scavenger, so she used to help her father clean the sewers, etc. So the whole point being that abuse, irrespective of whether it was sexual, physical, emotional, mental, whatever it was, the abuse was something that I think I felt that this kid was not responsible for any of this that was happening to her, for all those 19. And that's how I took a little place on rent, because that's all I could manage from my salary at that point in time. So I remember for 2,500 or 2,000 or something, we took a little one-room space on rent. Got a teacher, basically another member from the community to just be my support system there, because I was not from the community, and that's it. That's how. And of course, 3 months later, we got the organization registered, got the basic paperwork done, which is not as difficult as it seems to be. I think if you literally follow the protocol, if you literally follow the letter, by the law, the law by the letter, it's pretty simple. And that's where we are now.
So one thing led to the other, and you actually ended up, establishing Protsahan. But tell me something, the kind of empathy and compassion that you had the moment you saw that girl. Not everybody is able to react in a way. They want to help, but they're not able to. They don't know what to do, how to do, where to begin, right? And usually, when you have that kind of empathy and compassion, it's a lot to do with your own upbringing. So I'd want to actually go, a little back into your childhood and understand where was this all coming from?
So I don't know if I can relate to how I was as a kid, because I come from a very Punjabi household. I've got a lovely set of parents. I think I've been blessed with that. So very, very middle class or lower middle class upbringing. But something where education was always the top priority. There was nothing as important, or even there was nothing that you could compare to being beautifully educated. And that didn't mean literate, that actually meant educated. So just how my parents were. My dad is one of the most compassionate people. My mum is one of the most giving, unconditionally giving people that I've met in my life. I am not even 1/100th of either of them or both of them put together, not even close. But I think what I did have, I think more than compassion, I think I had the courage. Something that for the first few years I said that, I didn't acknowledge that, because I think also as women, we try to dim our own shine for the longest time. Maybe it's ingrained in us, maybe that's how we are brought up, I'm not sure. But I think now I do realize that the courage in my heart was the capital that I had. I didn't have big funds flowing in. I didn't have a huge backing of a VC or of a big CSR or whatever it's called today. But I did have a lot of courage, and that stands today as well. And I think that's the only thing I had. learning about the how the NGO world works, how you deal with the threats, how you work up the programs, how you scale the organization. That's just been something that I've ended up learning as a consequence.
Right. So you pretty much learned on the job, and it's all just passion that has led you to do this.
Maybe, I don't know. There are days when there is a passion fatigue. Maybe we can speak later in the conversation today, but there is a massive passion fatigue, all of that does come in on certain days, because there is only as much pain of the world that you can absorb. And I think people like us, and I will happily pull you in this thing as well, that people like us, I think empathy also becomes a cause of harm, self-harm, on days that you leave it unchecked. You can feel too much for the world, you can feel way too much for things, but there has to be a certain objectivity, that you need to bring in to your work, only to create more impact, but certainly more objectivity.
I agree. And there has to be some rationale to this, right? Like they say, some method to the madness also, right? I mean, you can feel all the empathy in the world, but if it's not led by well thought through action, then it's really not going to lead you anywhere.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think you were 24 when you started Protsahan, right?
Yes, now I'm very old. I have white hair.
Well, so do I. Don't worry. We've all grown wiser. That's something that we should don very confidently and with a lot of pride. So, but at 24, a lot of young men, women are obviously gunning for a very lucrative career, or either they're looking to further their education, go settle abroad, etc., etc. But you chose a very uncharted territory. So, what was your family's reaction when when they heard your decision about, okay, this is what I want to do in life, or at least for the next 10-15 years?
I think my parents were not I think they didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. They're like, NGO to theek hai, but you've done your MBA and you have, you need to kind of, they always felt that NGO means something which is absolutely unsustainable, or it means only social work, it means only sacrificing, like, something where, and I always felt that I didn't agree with, a lot of things that they said. And I always tell my girls at Protsahan as well that, democracy, if you want to understand what democracy is, you need to start from your family. You need to start putting your thoughts in front of your own father, with whom you don't agree on a lot of things. And I think it's important to also put here that today, although my parents literally volunteer for the organization in as many ways as they can, but I think in the beginning, my father, this was a sentence that he literally said, that हमारे घरों की लड़कियां brothels में काम नहीं करती हैं, कोठों में काम नहीं करती हैं. And I was like, I'm not working in a brothel. I am working, with the people or the children who should never be around a place like that. And I have no questions, no second thoughts on what I'm doing. And I think the fact that I never cared about the lucrative career bit, or the I've literally never cared about money. I do understand and I acknowledge that it's important to live your life, to just do the basic stuff that any young person wishes to do in their life. But I have never been into that 99 ka chakkar of hey, I need to have this. I've felt pretty complete in who I am, and I've always felt that I will always earn enough to take care of myself or my absolutely close loved ones, and beyond that I don't need anything. I am just so satiated and complete in who I am that I don't think I need money to complete who I am at all. So that career bit, I'm studying even today. I am working even today. I am doing whatever I wish to do. I also understand that's also a lot of privilege. The fact that even if it was a lower middle class or a middle class upbringing, I also do understand that I was blessed with a very good education, and that is my privilege, which I got to leverage.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think with a very solid value system as well, which has taken you where it has today, right? And tell me something. I know this this is very challenging as a career, as even to pursue as a passion. It's very, very challenging, right? To rescue these girls who are they already suffer so much. They have a lot of history, trauma with them. So what keeps you going?
I think even now, I actually don't know how to like literally answer this question in straight words, but I think I have always believed that the minute you weaponize somebody's suffering or your suffering, or victimize the whole episode, it prevents healing. Of course it has to be spoken about. Of course the story, if the person wishes to share, has to be shared. But there has to be, you don't have to be the victim of your suffering. You can always choose to be a warrior, somebody who came out of it, because these are important tenets when you consider healing. And whenever we talk about girls that we are working with, or children per se, girls, boys, we are working with, we never talk about, of course there's a lot of work on trauma, there's a lot of work on how we bring in creativity and art and technology to kind of literally put their mind into something that they wish to do, help them finish schools, and then they end up with jobs, etc. But all of this trauma handling or healing takes years. Like the gestation takes years and years. So I think one of the things that we probably understood right was, and again, something which was very organic. It was not that we got 5 psychologists or psychiatrists on board. No, this was something that just working with the children helped us understand over a period of a decade, if not less. What do these children need? How do these children jump out of where they have been? How do they own their story? They don't have to forgive the perpetrator. No, that's not my choice or the organization's decision. They can choose to forgive, they can choose not to forgive, and that's absolutely okay. Sometimes the abuse is not sexual, it is physical. Sometimes the trauma is also from the fact that the families in which they've been brought up are, there's been an intergenerational poverty since generations and generations. So they've always seen a lack of things and never an abundance of things. And, when you understand these things in recovery from trauma, one thing that I have understood, like I said, we always teach, I don't know, that's literally like the worst word I can use here, but basically teaching, for the lack of a better word, don't weaponize the suffering or your story, because that prevents healing.
Right. So tell me something, it's a lot to take on a daily basis, right? Because obviously it's a journey that every child takes, but when you bring them in, they're already suffering a lot. So have you ever felt that your spirit has broken down? Has anything ever done that to you? A particular case that you may remember? An incident maybe?
A lot of things, Diksha. I think sometimes also, when you enter the sector, specifically the non-profit sector vis-a-vis the corporate sector, in the corporate sector, more often than not, there's a fat pay bonus waiting at the end of the year if the company does well. Here it is, again, I don't want to sound corny, or I don't want to sound completely cheeky, but the truth is that at the end of the day, you see, it's also very selfish, I would say, because I feel that this is the most authentic thing I can do. I don't think I can do anything else. But when you're talking about the children, it's the children, they are happy beings. Trust me, sometimes when I see kids who've gone through a lot of stuff in life, like sometimes their own parents inflicting stuff on them, they are the happiest versions of people I have ever met or ever seen. And I think sometimes people like us, people, whether it's the volunteers or the people who are working in the NGO space, or anybody who's looking at the child from like 5 meters distance, we probably get that savior complex. And I'll be lying if I said that, hey, for the first 1 or 2 years, I felt like, Protsahan was saving the kids. Only 2-3 years hence, I realized, and now in the 10th or 11th year, I realized that who are we to save kids? Of course, a lot of that stuff is organic. But even in the beginning, those kids are just happy beings. All they need is a safe learning space. All they need is a safe space to, just grow. Somebody to just love them so much that they start loving themselves. And this is, I think, something that I've also learned over this journey, that when we love someone so much, they should start loving themselves. And there is no better healing than that.
Absolutely. So what's the process of teaching them self-love? How do you do that? How do you turn them around?
So it's like, so we use a lot of art, and I personally feel that art is something that makes you go within. Art is something. So art is a kind of a lie. Let me just put it in Picasso's words, I think, where he says something like that. Art is a kind of lie, but it will make you see truths about yourself that you have never fathomed. I think I'm making a mess of the quote that he had, that I had read once, but the basic premise is that art makes you look within. And of course, we do a lot of stuff with technology, with cameras, photography, films, education, of course, completing schools and all of that. But I think it's art that makes them go beyond themselves, and that's really the power trick that we have at Protsahan. We use mandalas, we use the entire process of filmmaking, photography. Sometimes they're making films on issues like Bal Vivah or child marriage, right? For example. So they might be making a movie on child marriage in their community, etc., to bring a message out. But the girl who's standing in front of the camera. So you asked me, how does this healing happen, right? The same girl, she stands in front of the camera as an actor. She has body image issues. She has issues that she has never respected her own body. And when she's an actor, she has to shed all of that because she has to be confident in front of the camera. And of course, she's taught. There's a 3-month, 6-month process that she undergoes, right? And when she's behind the camera, she's a director. So she's calling the shots. There is somebody who's listening to her. There's somebody who's giving her the respect of her decision being upheld, right? Now, when we say healing, healing is not a magic thing, and it's not that somebody who's gone through deep trauma needs healing. Healing is somebody that any adult, I think literally, if not 10 on 10, then probably 8 on 10 adults need healing for parts of their lives that they have probably tried to push under the carpet. And this is something that's very difficult to put a monitoring and evaluation pivot table or PPT on this, right? You can always, but what can be really measured in all of this is that she will start doing better at school. Her scores will improve. Her health is going to improve. Her basic sense of self-worth, self-love, confidence, self-esteem, all of that is going to improve. Her aspirations are going to go from a 0.0 to maybe a 3 or 5 or 6 on 10. And I think healing can easily be measured. The only thing is that it's too difficult sometimes. The gestation, like I said, period is too long. And in the race that the NGO sector is today, or I think generally the corporate NGO, everybody is in this space to what's the scale of things, what is the replicability of things, and at a point I do understand that these things are important to make sure that what you're doing literally has impact and can be measured. Yes, absolutely. But they should not be ridden to the grave. I think we really need to value what needs to be valued. And at the end of the day, it's literally, empowerment that speaks on their report cards, that speaks on their financial independence, that speaks on just the way they talk and the shine in their eyes. That cannot be put on an Excel sheet.
Absolutely. I think you're doing a phenomenal job. It's definitely not easy to turn lives around like that. And you're probably getting so many blessings in return. Hats off to you.
Thank you. I don't know about the blessings, but there is certainly, I remember once we were trying to teach menstrual hygiene or something about reproductive systems and sexual and reproductive body health, etc., to the girls, and we were using a lot of music and we were using a lot of cartoons. And I remember there were these science anatomy sort of charts that we were using, and you know how those anatomy charts look like, right?
Yeah.
So the somebody from
our teachers have conveniently skimmed them.
Oh yes,
skipped them
absolutely.
In 9th standard.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I still remember there was somebody in the community who spread the word saying that Sonal ma'am यहाँ पे धंधा करती हैं, she teaches the wrong things, the bad things to the kids. And the next thing I know is the community is up in arms, and so there are days like that as well. So I don't know about the blessings, but there are certainly days like that. But on those days, it seems like, oh my God, what I have landed myself into. But I think after 4 days, it's a joke then.
So speaking of resistances, I know that you must be working very closely with government organizations as well, even some corporates, even parents, right? Or the support system that, or the extended family, for example, of the children that you rescue. So what kind of resistances do you face day in and day out, and how do you really overcome them? Because I'm sure it's not easy to convince them in the first place as to what you're trying to do.
I think so. So, just one fact check here. Not all the kids we work with are rescued. Sometimes the rescue is definitely required. But at a lot of other times, there is a lot of violence and abuse that the children face. And we just make sure that, home visits and counseling and legal help and all of that is also provided. Which ideally can be defined as rescue loosely, but no, that's not literally rescue. But having said that, I think resistance from the community now it's way less because we've been doing this for the last almost 11 years now. But in the beginning, it was way too often and way too frequent. Until the girls themselves started to stand up, that I want to do this, I want to pursue this computer course, or I want to pursue my education till 12th. And my job then became easy. So first 3-4 years, the resistance was more on the lines of, why are you doing this? What is your faida in this? Why do you have a personal profit why would anybody be doing this? So the mothers of the girls would ask me, इसमें ज़रूर आपका कोई फायदा होगा. And I would always tell them that, so initially I would try to be defensive because again, as a 24-year-old, there's only as much brain you have. And I think, no, really, right? And I think you immediately become...
Some things you learn on the job. And
totally.
Evolve, right? So, yeah.
And then you would become defensive, not in the sense of, oh, this is wrong or right, but defensive in the sense that, no, I'm trying to give your daughter the kind of, the education so that she can stand up on her 2 feet, etc. Today, I don't have to do any of that, any of that, what do I say, the stories, or I don't have to put a statement out because the girls themselves are proof enough. So if the community themselves sends their daughters or their relatives' daughters or to the center or to the different centers now that we have. It's now community driven. I think in the corporate sector we call the push and the pull factor. It's pretty much the same here. Once the impact is out, once the parents see that the parents don't necessarily understand that as trauma or violence, or because it's a very everyday thing, but they do understand.
It's normal for them.
Very. But they do understand that as my daughter now speaks very fluent English, or my daughter now has landed up with a computer assistant, the job of a computer assistant, and she's earning more than the brother and the father of the family combined. She's putting more money on the table, so she has more decision-making capacity in the family. So these are tangibles that they understand, and I think that's when thorough empowerment actually ends up happening for that kid.
So when you do work with various sectors across the board, government, corporates, etc., what really irks you the most? What do you think is lacking, if I may use the word? And what's really the ground reality, if I had to ask you that?
I think the ground reality is not hidden from anyone. I think the institutions or institutions are made of people, right? I think people choose to close their eyes on things that they would literally see every day at the metro station or at the, at the dhaba. They will still call, less than a 15-year-old boy or girl chotu, choti. These are terrible narratives that we have. They're so ingrained that people don't even think about it, right? So leave alone the empathy. See, governments, we can't expect the governments to be empathetic. I think it's let's just only expect being justice, delivering justice. I think we'll be that's like the benchmark. But I think empathy, and let's not expect the governments to be empathetic or compassionate, because the numbers that in a country like India, when you're looking at the mandate of number of adolescent girls who need to be educated, number of adolescent girls who need sanitary napkins, number of adolescent girls who need to be, finishing their 12th or getting jobs or not being married as child brides. The numbers are crazy, right? So even if there is no empathy, I am fine with the government as long as the systems and the processes and the justice is, is delivered right. As far as
as long as they're fair.
Yeah, totally, right. And
but are they fair?
See, this is something that I'll be lying if I say everything is fair in this world. Nobody is. Do the corporates pay all their taxes? No. Do they do philanthropy? Oh yeah, how? Right, but I think so. A lot of times, this is like a joke that we have with our CSR friends, some of who are now extremely good friends, and so they always say that CSR at least pays for these social causes. And I said yes, some of the CSRs that I've had the honor, like literally the honor to know, are exceptionally great grounds up. But there are quite a few corporates, just like it's again, I think it's people, like you can, like people, like NGOs, like corporates, like governments, like there is no definition to who is good or bad or worse. But I think people who say that, hey, we do so much of, social work as corporates, I think they need to first pay their taxes. We are okay if they don't do social work, but pay their taxes first. That is more important. So fair is nothing in this world and will never be. Hope is never a great strategy. I think believing or empathy and expecting people to be compassionate or good-hearted, that's never a good strategy. What a good strategy probably would be setting your systems up right, ground up.
I think that's a very, very sane advice. But speaking of empathy, do you think as a society, our fabric really lacks that? Because I've seen a lot of, let's compare ourselves to the West, right? People over there donate generously. There's a very strong sense of community there. They participate. They come together for a cause if they feel very closely about it. But I don't see that in India. Why do you think that is?
I think I would kind of slightly disagree here, because I think where, it's not that Indians are not empathetic. I think, that we necessarily have to compare ourselves with the West because they're probably cleaner, surroundings or lesser corruption or all of those things. I mean, you look at US, you will probably be like, I don't know which is worse, India or US. Right, given today. But I think it's also a lot to do with the fact that Indians have always faced a lack. And when I'm saying Indians, it's also since the British era, the British Raj, when everything was being looted away, what was ours was being looted away. And I think the lack has kind of passed on to generations, where you feel that, aapko, and of course with the population figures that we have, everything is super competitive. For 10 seats, you have probably 2 lakh people applying. So the dynamics of the whole scarcity that we see, feel, observe, hear is so much more. And I think it's not the lack of empathy really, because even today, if you go to an extremely humble, home in a village, that person or that family, more often than not, will still feed you that do roti with achar or chutney, right? They will feed you before they feed themselves. The lack has been ingrained over a period of time, and I think that has taken the empathy away. We are still very, way more than West. We, I think, take care of our parents. Of course, there is no denying the fact that abuse also exists massively in the country. But we do have our positives, and I think I'm like a crazy optimist still. I don't know how I'm still holding on to that little thread of optimism, maybe for another week or a month. I don't know until how long this will last in the given scene today. But I think we just lack resources. We don't lack empathy. At a point, yes, I do understand where you're coming from in terms of how we treat people. Again, it's a lot which is based in the past, the history, the caste system, Jat, caste, all of that literally, and it's not something which is which can be cured or taken care of in the next 10, 20, 30 years. It's just the young people today who will break that chain in their closed 8 or 10 people. Yeah.
It's very interesting when you say this, that there's a lot of conditioning that we've all undergone, and maybe it does make sense, because if you look at a generation before us or 2 generations before us, they would be okay to employ a house help which is like a minor, a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old. They'd be okay to do that. I'm digressing a little, but when I hear that, it really makes me cringe, and I'm like, how can you really employ somebody who's so little for your domestic work, your housework, or even to take care of a child? And I've seen that so prevalent in urban cities, metro cities like Delhi, NCR for that matter, and with a lot of pride, they carry around this little girl and who's carrying a baby on her shoulders, and I'm like, how can you?
And they will justify it with the fact that we are taking care of her education.
Exactly, and that's how they whitewash it. Even the parents who send the girl, they're like, they have this justification. Chalo, अच्छा खाने को मिल रहा है, कपड़ा मिल रहा है, वो set है वहाँ पे, कमा के ला रही है. So, and I don't know what to say, really.
I think you're very right, Diksha, here. But again, it's people just don't know. I think even when I talk to a lot of my
don't know or don't care, Sonal. I mean, I think there's a difference, because if you ask me, maybe our generation is more empathetic or more self-aware, I would say. I wouldn't do that. Or maybe the people I know in my circle, my age, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't employ a 14-year-old to do their housework.
I don't know, because I have seen somebody from my own school do that, right? So my school means almost my age, my batch. And to take care of her kid, she really did employ a 12, 13-year-old kid. And when I confronted, because a lot of people, actually try to stay away from me, because I end up showing the something that we are now labeled as activist, feminist types. We will just stand up for what is right and call out what's wrong. And I think we're given names, but that's I think we take it in our stride too. But I think aisa nahi hai, it's not like that people our generation are more aware. I do, however, absolutely agree with the fact that some absolutely don't care and some absolutely don't know. But I think everybody, the consciousness has not evolved to a point where they think that anybody other than their own selves or their own immediate 4, 5, 6 needs is important or relevant. I think they feel the ahem is too strong, the me, I is too strong for them to feel that anything else holds relevance. So maybe they don't care and maybe they don't know.
Tell me something now that you did mention about feminism. What does that mean to you?
I think it's just simple equality, which is social, economic, political, emotional, at every level for both men and women and the third gender. It's something which, I don't know why. I think people who really don't understand what feminism means are the ones who call it out. It's of course there, the extremes of feminazis, and I don't know what all definitions have come up today. But feminism, as I understand, it's just socio-economic, political, emotional equality, right, between all genders. And just that. I don't understand what is so difficult that people on Twitter and people on social media are still fighting and calling each other names. And anybody who stands up for what is right as a woman is labeled a feminist as if it was a bad thing.
Yeah, I think social media troll is a separate conversation, maybe for another podcast altogether. So we'll park it for that one. But since we're talking about feminism, we should talk about patriarchy as well. What about that? What's your take on patriarchy?
Oh, whoa. I think patriarchy, I don't know where to start. Like, I think the fact that I really don't know where to start. I think it's everything that stops. It's something that probably is scared of women achieving their full potential and then men not knowing what to do, just the fact that they want to show women, quote unquote, their place, because otherwise we will end up taking their spaces, and that's a very threatened. It's a very threatening sort of a situation for some men. I think it stems from a deep fear. It's nothing else. It just stems from such deep fear that you make somebody insecurity. Yes, that's the word. That makes the other person, that you want to take away the strength of the other person or make them like literally at your literally take down a pedestal or make them do things which is absolutely even illegal. So when we talk about child marriages, or when we talk about dowry, when we talk about girls not being made to finish schools, or even if they're finished schools, or even even in my MBA batch, there have been cases where the best people in the batch have ended up just being married immediately after MBA, right? So I think sometimes along there is nothing right or wrong or good or bad as long as their own personal choices are there. Yeah. But I think as an overarching picture, as an overarching understanding of patriarchy, we are also scared of a woman going beyond and achieving her own things. So for example, I'm not going to say that, I belong to a very non-patriarch world. Absolutely not. I have seen things just like any other Indian girl would. And today when my husband cooks way better than I can ever imagine to do, it's kind of looked as, a lot of our friends, a lot of, maybe our family sometimes feels that Sonal cannot cook and just can. He actually pairs wines with the right food, and I have no understanding of any of this. So I sometimes, also question the very families and the fabrics of the very people that we live, in the communities larger, not just the 4 or 5 people with us, but, the larger fabric of the communities that we live in. How we are also, making sure that patriarchy absolutely exists, because we are so conditioned to live with it that anything other than that, we don't know how to consume it.
Yeah, it rattles them completely. You're right. So let's talk about something nice now. What has been the most satisfying moment of your journey so far?
I don't know. Maybe none yet. I still feel, I don't know if the Protsahan journey or my journey in life, but I definitely feel finding somebody as beautiful as a man as Jaswinder in my life has been one of my aces in life that I think the universe has planned to bless me with.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Lovely. So tell me, if you were to give your younger self advice today, what would it be?
Love yourself. It's okay for that little podgy nose. It's okay for your complexion to be dark or I don't know, whatever color XYZ. It's okay for you to stand out, if at all, from the crowd, because you were always meant to be, probably. There are reasons why sometimes we don't fit in, and on that, there are days when we try so hard as a 13, 14, 16-year-old to fit in, in our school, in our class, in our batch. And I think it's okay to not fit, because if we are not fitting in a space, more often than not, I think it means...
Then you're special.
Yeah, right? I wish I had known this as a 16, 17-year-old. I had so much of self-doubt. I had, I had so much of self-doubt. And I think if there's one thing that, even if I put on 4-5 kgs today, I know I'm going to shed it off, or I know I'm going to work them out, or, it doesn't bother me, oh my God, I'm putting on weight. No, I know who I am. I think it's just a generalization maybe, or a learning that hits you when you're 30 as a woman generally. But at 16, I wish somebody had believed in me to say, you're beautiful, you're great, I think all little girls need to be told that.
Yeah, I think this is a learning for our generation to pass it on to the next one now. If we did not get this enough, maybe it's our duty to do that to the next generation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me, if Sonal had a superpower, what would it be? And what would you do with that superpower?
Where do you get these questions from?
From my brain, which is still intact.
I think I would just maybe whip a wand, a magic wand or something, and make this world a little more peaceful, just, happy. I don't know. There's so much of stuff happening beyond us, Diksha, that sometimes I look at. So I've stopped consuming TV news by choice.
And I did that fine. So.
Yeah, and at times, although I still consume a lot of my news on Twitter or places like that, or maybe a couple of online magazines, there is still a lot of TV that ends up coming on your timelines. And I think every time I see things, every time there was a time, there were like literally 3-4 years when I went into my shell, thinking that I will do things with Protsahan, with a lot of love, with a lot of beauty, with a lot of care. But it would hurt me so much, to see, and I'm one of those people, and I think when you're too empathetic, that's one of the curses that you are blessed with, or given probably, is that you feel things too deeply. And I think as women, we are also told that, and I was told, by some of my very, very close friends, rather, growing up at 20, 21, 22, that, Sonal, you're too sensitive. That's a problem. You should try and adjust.
Heard that a lot.
Yeah, as if that was some sort of lack. I think people need to be sensitive, isn't it? People need to not be insensitive. People need to be empathetic. People need to be just commonsensical and compassionate. Shouldn't that have been the normal, right? But the fact that as women, right, that and I'm sure that the same journey for men is even harder, because the men are asked that hey, if you're a sensitive man, then you're not, you have to man up.
You're not man enough.
And I think
you have to toughen up.
You can't cry. And and I think or maybe just the simple fact that you're too soft with things, and I think irrespective, even now as the CEO or whatever of an organization, I sometimes get to kind of hear this, that you can't be too sensitive about things, Sonal. I think if I was not sensitive, Diksha, I would have probably never started Protsahan. So I take my courage and my being sensitive or being empathetic or whatever as my, as stars on my uniform, if at all. I am not apologetic about it. And I think sometimes we just need to, just own who we are in the most authentic way possible. I always tell, my girls as well that it's always like, as if on a number line, if you plot dishonesty, let's say at -10, honesty would be at a 0. and authenticity would be at a +10. So we are trying so hard to be honest with things, and we are still at 0. The day we learn to be who we are, the authentic self, is when we will become the positive on the number line. And that's what we need to do more of, I think.
Right. Beautifully put. So that also brings me to the unsolicited advice. I'm sure that's doled out to you a lot of times. So what's the funniest unsolicited advice that you ever got that you remember?
I still do get a lot of it, and I think that's it's actually, I don't know if it's sweet or it's because I don't mind it. I am not like, oh, why are you giving me this? It's not needed. Or I just love. It's so funny sometimes, that I am told that, oh, I should have a kid of my own. I don't want to have a kid of my own. Maybe 10 years later, okay, if I feel like it, I'm going to look at it. But I don't wish to have a kid of my own. And I think, and that's absolutely like a dual decision between Jas and me. But I think this advice of when I was, I think, 26 or 27, I got this advice to, hey, get married now. You should absolutely get married. I got married when I was sure of the man. The man was sure of me, right? And that was when I was 32. And I think just these little, and again, that brings me back to patriarchy, right? The question that you asked, that all of this, unsolicited advice also stems from the fact that we are to be a certain way, because patriarchy demands us to be a certain way. If we don't confine to, that box that they have created for us, we will threaten them. And that threatening is what leads to that unsolicited advice. But it just makes me laugh now. It just makes me laugh.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to just ignore it. And unfortunately or fortunately, they haven't been able to clip your wings. So yeah, that's really their problem to deal with. Tell me, what's that one thing on your bucket list?
To see the Northern Lights in Alaska or Finland, or that's maybe not number one. I don't know if there was a bucket list or a number one, but that's definitely something I want to do. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else right now.
Crazy or kind? What defines you?
Certainly crazy. I'm not the kind person. No. And I think that's a misconception. A lot of people feel that because I would have, because I run an organization like Protsahan, I will be always very kind and giving and unconditional. No, I'm not like that. I will switch off my phone when I don't want to take calls. I will, and this is again, Diksha, this is a learning that has come in after maybe 7-8 years, if not 10, of running an organization, that, there are days, because you love this thing so much, you're putting your heart, mind, body, soul, sweat, tears, blood, everything literally into the organization or your work. It doesn't seem like work. And, although a lot of people call it as passion, I think for the person who is doing this, it also is a lot of exhaustion, because you do not know when to switch off. You do not know when this passion will become a little fatigue. Even so, for example, the running around, the firefighting on the ground that I would do at 24, 26, at 34, I probably have 10 people who do it. But, as me personally, I think I need, at the end of, if not the week, I would be lying if I say that I get time to read and stuff, but maybe at the end of the month, or maybe a few hours a month, I would want to just switch off my phone, read what I want to read, watch a couple of great movies a month, and not want to be disturbed. And if that means not picking up 5 phone calls, I am not apologetic about it. So maybe that makes me unkind, I am not sure, but that's certainly something that I think I need to do to recharge myself, to be able to do best of who I am, or to do to be the best version of myself the next day at work. So certainly not kind. That was a very long answer, but crazy, definitely yes. I think if I was not crazy, I would still be doing what I was doing. I remember how we had met. You were sitting right next to me on the first day of this new role that I had picked up at an organization. And I remember I used to see you, and I was never, that you would constantly be looking in your computer. You would have your breakfast at your table, and a very healthy breakfast at that. I remember all of that, Diksha. And I was just beginning, and the corporate culture and that was when Protsahan was, I think, 3-4 years old or more. And I realized that I'm turning broke. I need money. So I started doing some consulting, and that was that role that I had picked up when I met you. And I think crazy is more me. I am myself when I'm crazy. Doesn't mean like, shouting on the rooftops. But crazy also means subtly picking up your battles, doing it your way and winning them.
Absolutely. I think you need to have that little bit of craziness to do the kind of work you do. It's not easy. It's not easy. And with the kindness, I think it's okay to think about yourself. Like you said before, self-love. So you have to put your needs first as well sometimes, and it's okay to switch off. So that's fine. You don't have to feel guilty about it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if I were to ask you a song that defines your life, what would that be?
Oh shoot, I should have done my homework. Song.
Well, I did not prepare you for this question.
I think it might sound funny, but I think I like a lot of Taylor Swift. The lyrics. There's no one song, but I think a lot of times I love Adele. I like a lot of Pradeep, the old Pradeep that that my father used to listen to. So a lot of the Pradeep songs it's music.
Choose one.
Okay, now you're putting me in a soup. There's this. I should text you after the conversation, maybe. Because music for me has always meant. Music for me has always meant lyrics, way more than anything else. So I listen to something, I read the lyrics along with the thing, and they just. And I don't remember the lyrics always. I can't hum the lyrics with the song because I'm also a very terrible singer. But definitely Pradeep and Taylor Swift. Very weird combination. But
That's okay. See, crazy. That's crazy. Who's your favorite author?
I think Amartya Sen is very good. But I've always loved, as a kid, I've loved Roald Dahl, a lot of magical stuff, a lot of Matildas and a lot of, I've liked adventurous magical stuff. But Ayn Rand and Amartya Sen as an adult, these two.
Isn't that what you're doing for your girls now? Becoming the fairy godmother for them?
I don't know.
Yes.
And if you were to write a book on your life, what would the title be?
My courage is my capital.
That's beautiful. One thing that your girls have taught you that has stayed with you?
Patience.
Oh, yes. Children demand a lot of patience. I know that for sure. I think that's the end of it. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for opening up. And I will keep you posted on when this comes out, yeah?
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye.